There's one retirement mistake that quietly transfers your entire estate to the wrong person while you're still alive. There are 6 others that also negatively affect your retirement plan, and most plans have at least one of these mistakes. On this episode of Your Independent Years, we're going to walk you through 7 retirement mistakes that will cost you everything that most people don't know. 7 mistakes. 7 specific decisions, or non-decisions, that quietly cost American retirees more money than anything else. Some mistakes cost you a few $100s a month. Some cost you years of income. And one of them can transfer your entire estate to the wrong person while you're still alive. In this episode, we'll show you all 7. None of these are exotic. None of them require an advanced finance degree to understand. They're the 7 that the data keeps catching across every income bracket, every state, every type of plan. And the people who avoid the worst of them aren't the ones with the most money. They're the ones who knew which 7 to check for before they lost the money. We'll start with the smallest money loss and work our way up to the biggest loss. Mistake 1 is the smallest mistake of the 7, but it's the one that hands the IRS a bigger share of your retirement than the law actually requires. Most retirees have 3 types of retirement accounts. The first kind, where you've already paid tax on the money you put in. The second kind, where you haven't paid tax yet, like your 401k or IRA. And the third kind, where you've paid tax up front so you'll never pay tax again, often called a Roth. Each one is taxed differently when you take money out. And the order you take it out can change your tax bill by tens of thousands of dollars across your retirement. The age you're forced to start taking money out: 73. Then there's the deadline. At age 73, or 75 if you were born after 1960, the IRS forces you to start taking money out of the accounts where you haven't paid tax yet. Whether you need the money or not, the amount you have to take out has a name: Required Minimum Distributions, sometimes shortened to RMD. And the gap between when you stop working and when the government forces you to start taking money out is one of the most valuable tax planning windows you'll ever have. About 6 years. During that time, you can move money from your not yet taxed accounts into your already paid upfront accounts and pay tax at lower rates than you'll pay later. Most retirees never even know this option exists. And if you miss one of those forced withdrawals entirely, the IRS penalty is 25% of the amount you should have taken out, on top of the regular tax. 25%. For a deadline most people don't have on any calendar. It's a lot. 3 types of accounts: a deadline, a window, a penalty. And the order you take money out matters as much as how much you saved. Most of this never comes up until you're already retired, and the extra tax shows up on a return a year later. The second mistake doesn't show up on any retirement spreadsheet because the loss happens in a single afternoon, from a phone call, or a text, or a stranger online. In 2025, Americans aged 60 and older lost $7.7 billion to cybercrime. That's the FBI's official number, published this April. It's nearly a 60% jump from the year before, and it's almost certainly an undercount because most victims never report it. Over 201,000 senior victims in 2025. Over 201,000 senior victims. The average loss per victim: over $38,000 per person, per scam. And the scams aren't what they used to be. Investment fraud, tech support impersonation, a grandchild's voice on the phone asking for help, except it's not the grandchild. It's an artificial intelligence trained on a 30-second clip from social media. Voice cloning losses, 2025. Over $5 million, more than $5 million lost in 2025, to voice cloning alone. Where a scammer mimics a loved one's voice well enough that the victim wires money before stopping to call the real person back. Almost every victim says the same thing afterwards. They never thought it would happen to them. They were careful, skeptical, educated. And then one phone call caught them on the wrong morning. The mistake isn't naivety. The mistake is assuming the threat is small. When the FBI says older Americans are the single largest victim group of cybercrime in the country, believing it is the first defense. 62 is the earliest age you can claim Social Security. It's also the most popular. More than 1 in 5 Americans take it the moment they're eligible. And for most of them, that decision is permanent, for the rest of their life. You may already know taking it early is a mistake. What most people don't know is exactly how much it costs. Claim at 62, $1,380 per month. Claim at 70, $2,275 per month. The average American who claims at 62 receives about $1,380 a month in 2026. The American who waits until 70 receives about $2,275. That's roughly 60% more for doing nothing except waiting. The reduction for claiming at 62, compared to claiming at the age the government calls your full retirement age, 67, is 30%. And it's locked in. The Social Security Administration doesn't reverse it. The check doesn't grow back when you turn 70. Whatever you locked in at 62 is what you receive until the day you die. On a typical benefit, that's $600 a month gone, $7,200 a year. Over a 30-year retirement, well over $200,000. From one decision made on one afternoon. Most people who claim early do it for understandable reasons. They're tired. They want the money. They worry the program won't be there later. And those feelings are real. But the math isn't on their side. The fourth mistake is the assumption behind a lot of the others. The belief that there's one simple rule that solves retirement planning. The 4% rule. Built for 1994. Tested against pre-2022 inflation. The 4% rule was built in 1994. It assumed a 30-year retirement. It assumed healthcare would be a modest part of the budget. It assumed inflation would hover around 3%. And it assumed your spending would drop once you stopped working. All four have shifted. Healthcare costs for the average couple in retirement now run over $345,000. Inflation in 2022 hit 9%. Retirees are living 30 years past retirement, not 20. And spending in the first decade of retirement now often matches what people spent while working. The rule isn't broken. It's just no longer enough on its own. Healthcare cost, inflation, longevity, spending. 4 of the 4 assumptions the 4% rule was built on have moved against retirees. The mistake isn't using the rule. The mistake is treating it as the whole plan when it's only one piece of it. The 5th mistake is more subtle than it looks, and almost everyone makes some version of it. The assumption that Social Security will cover your retirement, that the monthly check is your new salary. Most people know it won't cover everything. What most people don't know is how big the gap actually is. Social Security replaces about 40%. You pay the other 60%. For the average worker, Social Security covers about 40% of what you used to earn from your job. Financial advisors generally recommend you plan to cover 70 to 85%, which means, for most Americans, Social Security covers about half of what you'll actually need to maintain your lifestyle. The other half, you have to pay for yourself. Average monthly check, 2026, about $2,100. In 2026, the average Social Security check is about $2,100 a month, which is real money. But for someone who earned $60,000 a year before retiring, it's a long way short of replacing the life that salary built. The mistake isn't claiming Social Security. The mistake is planning as if it's enough on its own. It's the floor under the plan, not the plan itself. Every retiree who built a budget around their Social Security check and didn't separately plan for the other 60% runs out of money sooner than they expected, usually in the third year of retirement, when they realize the math never added up. Mistake 6 is the one people put off the longest. And the data on this one is genuinely surprising. It's also the one this episode opened with, the one that can transfer your entire estate to the wrong person while you're still alive. Gen X, 62% no plan. Millennials, 58. Boomers, 48. Gen Z, 54. In 2026, 56% of American adults have no plan in place for what happens to their money after they die. No will, no trust, no paper giving someone they trust the power to make decisions if they can't. No paper saying what medical care they want at the end. Nothing. That's a survey of 5,000 adults, published this April by Trust and Will. And it isn't only younger Americans. 48% of boomers, the generation closest to actually needing it, also have nothing in place. Roughly half of every retiree you know. And when there's no will, the state writes one for you. A court decides who gets what. The process can take months, sometimes years. And the legal fees can take a meaningful share of what you meant to leave behind. The strangest part of the data, most of the people without a plan believe they need one. 73% say it's important. The gap is between knowing and doing, and it has held steady for years. The seventh mistake is hidden inside your retirement savings, and it has a name almost no one outside finance has ever heard. Sequence of returns risk. The simple version is this. The first 10 years of your retirement. Decide the next 30. If the market drops badly in those first years, while you're already withdrawing money to live on, your retirement savings may never recover, even if the market does. Researchers at Morningstar found that a 15% drop in year 1, combined with a 3.3% withdrawal, increased the odds of running out of money over 30 years by 6 times. Compared to a retiree whose first year was positive. The reason is simple. When you sell shares to pay your bills during a downturn, those shares are gone. They can't participate in the recovery. The market comes back. Your retirement savings don't. And the mistake is keeping the same risky mix of investments you had while you were saving. The mix that built the savings is not always the mix that protects them once you start taking money out. Most retirees never adjust. They keep the same mix of investments they had at 50. And they enter retirement with everything riding on the market doing exactly what it did last decade, which it sometimes does, and sometimes does not. 7 mistakes. Withdrawing in the wrong order, underestimating fraud, claiming Social Security too early, betting everything on one rule, treating Social Security like the whole plan, skipping the estate documents, and ignoring the timing of returns. Each one verified, each one fixable, and none of them about how much you saved. They're about which 7 things you checked your plan for before you lost the money. The retirees who navigate this well aren't the ones who avoided every mistake. Nobody does that. They're the ones who knew which 7 to look for, who checked their plan for each one, and who fixed the ones they found. before the cost got worse. And that work starts with one honest review. Which of the 7 is already in your plan? One important note before we wrap up. This episode walks through what the data says about these 7 mistakes. It is not personal financial, tax, or legal advice. Tax rules in particular change often, and the right answer for your retirement depends on your own numbers, your own state, and your own situation. Before you act on any of this, talk to a licensed tax professional, a financial advisor, or an estate attorney. The goal of this episode is to help you know which questions to ask. The answers are theirs to help you find. In our next episode, we'll cover the single most searched retirement question on the internet: when you should actually take Social Security. The math behind the $100,000 decision. Until then, go review your plan and subscribe to Your Independent Years.